Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "Oh, we'll sign the register on time." I heard this story from my uncle. It's short, but the only malicious compliance story I can remember hearing. So ours is a third world country, and the era when this story took place was pre-computer era. My uncle worked in a bank, and in those days attendances were recorded by signing in a register. Employees had to put the in and out time in the register as well at the start and end of their shift. Now, a bank can be very busy place. Hence, even though employees tended to reach office on time, they would prefer to get straight to their workstations, and would sign the register whenever they got a small window in their otherwise busy schedule. This worked fine for everybody, but also benefited the late-comers, early-goers as well. So when management got wind of this, they published a notice stating that all employees would have to first sign the register as soon as they reached office. Well, sure thing they did. The next day, there was a long line in front of the register. All the employees waiting patiently to dutifully put their signs before starting with the day's work. Everyone opened the register, slowly got to where her name was, signed it slowly, and then closed the register. The next person did the same. A bank normally opened at 8:30 a.m. That day, it took until 10:30 a.m. for work to kick in full capacity. Imagine the wrath of the customers. Suffice to say the policy did not last long. Next one is titled, "Don't listen to me because I have less experience?" Okay, enjoy being blasted by the client. So let me set the scene. I'm a software engineer. I used to work for a pretty big company that specialized in developing software solutions for their client. I was sent on site to the client, which was a big Malaysian bank, to play the role of front-end developer, basically make their internet banking website. They already had back-end services set up for a mobile application which we were also to use for the website. There was only one problem: you could only install the app in one phone and log in to your account. This meant that if the customer logged into their app, they wouldn't be able to log in through the website. As anyone can determine, this is a big problem. I went to the back architect and tried to tell him as well as the project manager of this problem. They told me I don't know what I'm talking about and stop disturbing them and just do my job and nothing else. I later found out that they hated the previous front-end manager and would never listen to the front team. So I sent a mail detailing the whole problem to both of them and their bosses as well. As expected, nothing happened, but my butt was covered. Fast forward 2 months. The client reviews the architecture for the website and finds that no changes have been made to the back-end to accommodate the different behavior of the website. They call a meeting and blast the two above guys and their boss. They claim they are back-end people and don't know the difference in behavior in a website, and it was my job to let them know. So they bring me in to question me why I didn't let them know, and because of me the project has been delayed 2 months and the company has incurred losses. I calmly tell them of my meeting with two idiots and show them the mail, which they ignored. Then it was a glorious explosion. After that they always consider my suggestions. Edit. People have been asking about the glorious explosion. Well, basically the architect was called incompetent and his 20 years of experience was called into question, and the project manager blamed everything on the architect. Aftermath. After 2 months the architect was transferred to another project and replaced, and the project manager quit IT, and last I heard he is trying to set up an organic farming business. Next one is titled, "If you can't do it perfect then don't do it." Okay. Backstory. I worked retail when I was younger. Like most people, it was a mixed bag, and some of my best and worst memories involve my time working in retail chains. I worked in footwear in a then blossoming sporting goods franchise and had a real knack for it. It was rewarding helping people find shoes in their sizes, and it's heartwarming at times, especially when people with disabilities showed up and really needed hands-on assistance with things, and that was a core value the company had at the time. My hiring supervisor, whose name isn't important, was amazing and the staff was really cool too. We all liked and respected him a lot. But alas, like many good things, it came to a sudden and forceful end and upper management decided change was in order and shifted the supervisors opening a spot in my department. That's when the new supervisor, henceforth known as Brandy, came in. Brandy was a transfer from another store 30 minutes away. The entire supervisor team knew and were not fond of her, but she filled a void and the district manager and store manager were big fans of her for reasons unknown. We were warned that she was a woman of many faces, and would tell you or promise you things you'd never get. I learned this about her fairly quickly, and before she even knew the staff, our strong suits, our schedules, or our names, she had a set list of things she wanted done and could not be deviated from. There was also word going around she liked to make staffing changes and hire her own people when she came in. Morale died fairly quickly within the first week she was there. In short, she was a nightmare for almost the entire store. Now to the actual story. Brandy's first day was on a particularly busy summer day, and before I could even walk back to my section I could hear her voice calling over the intercom constantly. Along the way I was greeted by the morning staff who gave me a quick rundown of her and what she was like. Then told me to have fun. Oh boy, I thought to myself. I found her in the back near the cleats and introduced myself. You have your tasks assigned to you already, and I want all of the displays finished in your areas before you leave today. I thought this was strange because I had set the displays for those exact sections the night prior. All according to the franchise standards, firmly stuffed to look like a foot was in them, no visible laces shown, and even the laces changed to go inside the shoe so they didn't obstruct the view of the top of the shoe. They were signed off as completed by the lead on duty and even complimented. I was proud of my work. I went back to the sections I did the night before and looked them over for a few seconds, super confused. I shrugged it off and set to checking or at least restuffing a few to see if I had missed something. Nope, nothing. But I continued on as I had been instructed and did my job, and things seemed like they were going pretty smooth. Later on that afternoon Brandy came back up to me, asked me when I was going to finish my displays, and I told her that I had. She looked at me and then back at my displays and made a look of disgust and said, "You're going to leave them like that?" "Like what?" I said back, confused. Nothing I did was ever really a problem in the past, and I really didn't want to piss her off because I loved my job and it was my first day with her. She scoffed and said, "Like this?" and then grabbed a broken metal peg off a sock end cap and proceeded to jam as much paper as humanly possible into the shoe until it couldn't hold anymore. No lie, the shoe felt like someone had filled it with concrete, and the fabric even protruded on some shoes because of the pressure. It was not pretty or guideline. After watching how she did it, just stood there dumbstruck because, again, this went against almost all of my training up to that point. Then she started in on me. No matter how hard I tried to give her what she wanted but still meet the guideline I'd been trained for, she didn't like it and would get me to do them again. This went on for a little bit. And then she ducked up. After an agonizing amount of time she grabbed a shoe from me and said, "No. Do it perfect. If you can't do it perfect, then don't even try. Just leave it for someone else to do." Let me remind you that she had a full list of other things she wanted done, but she rang a bell I wasn't going to ignore. So, instead of giving me another task, she gave me a loophole. I capitalized fully. Cue malicious compliance. After an emotional wrecking like the one she had given me, I excitedly said, "Okay," and walked away to help customers. I left her there with the display still her hand. She also said this within earshot of several other employees that were already sour with her. She didn't want me to try if I couldn't be perfect? Fine. That was exactly what I did. I did nothing on that list. For 4 months. I don't even remember anything it says on it. You might be wondering to yourself, how did you not get fired? Well, she tried. Several times. Anytime she would try to write me up, I would quote her exact words to her, the store supervisor, the leads, the district manager, and even someone in HR when they came to visit. Eventually she was told to stop because her attempts could be viewed as retaliation, and that was a huge corporate no-no. I still provided excellent customer service and got rave reviews and compliments when customers went to check out, and the store manager and I got along really well, so they were hesitant to push too hard. A few months later I changed departments and then met my now wife on a store setup trip and moved across the state. When she found out I was quitting, she pretended to be upset, but everyone knew she wanted me gone. She was gone within a year of me leaving. No clue why. Totally worth it. Thanks for the funny memories, Brandy. Next one is titled, Are You Sure You Don't Want Training Before I Leave? Backstory. I was at my previous place of employment for 3 years. It was a new company, and when I started there were no systems in place. There had been several incidents prior to me starting because of the lack of systems. By incidents I mean things that could have shut the company down. So when I started I set up systems, implemented policies, and over the first few months had to replace almost the entire staff who would not let go of awful habits. 0 further incidents. Slowly I built up a solid team. We often got praise from our customers about individual team members, and I even built up solid relationships with our competitors and others in related fields, and we helped each other out, sending clients to each other when we couldn't accommodate them, etc. When I had started I came in at a lower salary but extra PTO to balance it out, 5 weeks. The agreement was when we hit a certain customer base I would be given a raise. Within 6 months we had doubled our customer base, and within a year we had almost tripled it, and I got my raise. Around this time the CEO makes a terrible investment that I warned him against, and we start to drain money. So there's the starting of a resentment towards my salary. About 6 months later he wants the company to get certified. It's a lot of work which I won't do for free. He also wants me to take over HR, needs to meet standards for certification. I tell him I want compensation for taking over 2 additional jobs. He says he'll do it himself, procrastinates for 2 months, takes one look at what needs to be done, and then tells me he'll pay me. So I get it done, we get certified. But he doesn't want to keep paying me, we're talking about less than $100 a week, so he says he'll take over. Okay. On to 6 months later and the pandemic. CEO tried to get me to start going into the office a month into the pandemic. Mind you, I had made our systems fully online from when I had started. He just didn't like not seeing my face every day, and I was of course hesitant. But with certain conditions I go in. That same week I get a call. There was a customer who came in with symptoms and had tested positive. So back to working from home. Well, this resentment over my salary and work from home started to get worse over the year. Rudeness, micromanagement, undercutting me in front of my staff, etc. Finally CEO informs me they're cutting my PTO. I've had enough and turn in my month notice. I offer to train CEO in everything, but he wants to meet face to face. Most of what needed training was on the computer, all the documents, customer tracking, etc. CEO procrastinates, so I finally just start sending documents I thought were relevant, and he asks to meet with me on the last day. I set aside a few hours because he had no idea how to do the recertification, no idea how any of the systems worked, etc. Instead of training he decides to go over the printed out files and writes down a list of inspections. Takes me a total of 20 minutes. Okay, if you don't want to be trained I can't make you. I double check with him to make sure he has all the documents. 5 p.m. on my last day I delete everything off my computer. I had signed a termination document indicating I wouldn't be keeping confidential documents. A week later I get a panicked call. There's data they need and can't find. Oh, sorry, for the termination document you had me sign, I deleted everything. 2 weeks later I get another call. Oh, you want to know how to do that? Oh well, I used to use my system to do it, but that's all gone now. You had me sign a termination document stating I would delete everything, and since you couldn't be bothered to train on it. A few days later, another call. Oh, you're working on recertification? Sorry, I don't recall exactly how to do it, but it was in those documents somewhere. Too bad we didn't sit down while I was still your employee so you could be trained on it. It's been 3 months. 75% of the staff is gone. I received calls from them over the past months as they left. CEO's star employee, mine too. He did amazing work, contacted me for a reference, he is at a new position. Their primary customer, provided about 70% of the business, is no longer sending them new business. Apparently they're not very happy with them. Said customer had reached out to me a few weeks ago to find out if I was accepting business. Next one is titled, Not Mine but a Friend's. This is a short one but pretty funny. A friend of mine works retail, so he has to deal directly with customers daily. The good, the bad and the Karens. So this was a total Karen. She apparently comes into his store a lot. She's always rude. She likes to tell him what things should cost. He does, in fact, have some flexibility in that, and she knows it. So, one day she comes in being her usual rude self. She insists to him that this item she is buying is 40% off and she doesn't want to hear differently. So, he scans it and it turns out it's 60% off. But because she didn't want to hear anything different than 40% off, he fixes it to only 40% off. After all, the customer is always right. Last one is titled, Throw It in the Stove? Okay. My father's story. I remembered him telling it because someone on Twitter asked if people ever had to go cut their own switches to be hit with. I never had to, but my father did at school. This story is one example of why. I grew up in rural Canada. Electricity only came to this area in 1945. When I got my first home in 1995, it had a party line. It was the last jurisdiction in North America to get digital phone service. So my parents went to a one-room schoolhouse with a pot-bellied stove for heat. My dad says that one teacher, if the students wouldn't show her what was in their hands, would instruct the student to throw whatever it was into the wood stove. So some of the boys decided to take shotgun shells to school and hold onto them very tight. When she instructed them to throw them into the stove, they complied. He never said exactly what happened, because he would just chuckle at that point. I cannot imagine being a teacher in a rural one-room schoolhouse, with no electricity, an outhouse, and children as wild as the flowers in the fields. Thanks for listening.